Hey, what is going on, guys? This is the SS Ultimate Goku back with another video, and today I am going to be doing the review of Avatar: The Live Action Series, Season 2, um, Episode 15 review. So this was the final episode of the Season 2, right? One less of season one's episode, which had 8. This season only had 7. Um, we're gonna get to this. So the episode opens up. We see a flashback of Appa and how he was chosen to be Aang's companion. Um, They used another actor, I think, because this was like a flashback when Aang was younger. Um, I don't know why they didn't just use CGI for like Aang's actor from like the first season when he was younger, but they decided to just use a new actor for the flashback so he looks younger. Um, anyways, so there was that. I mean, nothing really wrong about the scene overall. That was just something I wanted to point out. They said, some of the classic lines, choosing your bison is like choosing your person for life and whatnot. So they went back to that, which is cool. Then we see Sokka, who is thrown into, he's thrown into, the crystal prison or whatever. Sai is like there with him, and he explains what happened to him, and like he helps Sokka because Sokka, is still he can't move. Right, he can't move because he's like been chi blocked still, so those effects are still in. So that's going on. Meanwhile, we have Katara, who's thrown also in a different room in this this crystal prison with Zuko. Um, she doesn't know it's Zuko at first, and then when she finds out it's Zuko, she's just like, all pissed at him because he's the blue spirit and stuff like that. And he was saving people like she was as the painted lady. So she's pissed at him, and we see the classic, stuff that she said in the original series. What she went through, and what happened to her mother and whatnot. And then we see the thing with Zuko, and it's like, so that's what we have in common. My mother was taken away from me by the Fire Lord, and like I have this scar because of it, over that stuff. Also, while this is all happening, Toph's mother is talking to Toph, and she's like, you give me time and whatnot. And then at the end of the speech, the mother actually drugs her tea, and so she is just like knocked out, and so they end up leaving Ba Sing Se. She puts her into the metal thing. We'll get to that later as well, but basically, it's completely different, obviously, from the original. Having the mother come in and do this was something that I just thought was kind of really different, and why they did that. All right, so then here's the scene. The scene and the highlight of probably this episode, that scratching my head and whatnot. So we have Long Feng, okay, who makes an agreement with Azula, right? But then uh, we see that the earthbending generals, the other remaining earthbending generals, are, you know, they're coming up, and starting to ask Long Feng stuff. And Long Feng makes an announcement that, um, that one of the generals has been basically arrested for treason. And they questioned this, like, what do you mean she's been arrested for treason? And they're just like questioning, and then Azula butts in, and they're like, "What does the Kyoshi Warriors got to do anything with this?" And then Azula immediately uses lightning bending on all the generals. I don't know if the generals die, but they're seriously knocked out. I hated this scene because this made the Earth Kingdom generals, who are supposed to be very, very powerful, very, very military strong, right? They just all got destroyed by Azula. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, Azula is a powerful bender. Yes, she is. But to be able to take out that many Earth Kingdom generals who have gone and fought vigorously in battle, and they're all there at once, and she takes them all out, that to me is unrealistic. And that's not what happened in the original either. In the original, all the generals were like captured one by one by the Dai Li agents in specific situations. They weren't like just one-shotted by Azula. This to me was unrealistic. Also, because if Azula can do this to all the generals, how can't she just... How wasn't she able to take out anybody else out that very easily? If she was that powerful, she should have been able to take out other people very easily, but she wasn't able to. That to me just doesn't make sense. That makes the Earth Kingdom look extremely weak. These are supposed to be the best generals we have to offer, and they get taken out that easily. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? So then after she takes them out, she basically says a Long Feng, our agreement's different. I'm going to take the Avatar, but also the city's mine now. Yeah, so she then puts her assigned general in charge, as if, they're following Azula orders to Long Feng. Because now he's been freed. Then Long Feng, we see Avatar Aang, who is being assisted by Uncle Iroh to try and free, their friends. Obviously, Uncle Iroh is trying to free Zuko. So they go into this, like, this door that's, like, designed for the Avatar, or people that have, like, 4 elements. That, have 4 benders with the different elements. Obviously, Aang knew how to do the 3 elements, so Iroh's like, good thing I'm here. And so they start going in there, and they eventually find everybody, and they free them, and then, obviously, they're like, oh, well, he's got good in him and whatnot. Well, let me see all the good in him, So there's this hesitation there with those guys about trusting Zuko. While Aang is freeing them, he eventually is able to find his bison. Also, he's confronted by Long Feng before this, and Long Feng is like saying he warns him about Azula, and that he won't be able to defeat her, and we need to leave. And he's like, I don't trust you, and I will defeat her. And he's like, you're a fool, and then he just kind of runs off. Toph, again, getting back to Toph. She's now waking up from the poison. She sees her mother, and she's all pissed off. And then eventually, she just decides to metal bend because her realizes that Team Avatar is the ones that actually help her. And so she learns how to metal bend. She gets out of the metal, and basically frees herself. And she says she's the greatest earthbender ever. And then we see that image of her like walking on the earth, and stuff like that. We don't get to hear her say Dunderhead because it was her mother that kidnapped her, not the two people that were supposed to find her. They changed that. So, yeah, they couldn't really do that here. So then we then see the Dai Li agents basically brainwashing Judy, right? There's no war in Ba Sing Se. Personally, I think this is something that should have been established in probably like 3 episodes ago. The fact that this was done now, this late, I think is not really that good. However, after Aang is starting to free people, he wants to free Judy because Judy is being essentially tortured by the Dai Li agents. However, Judy decides to tell the Dai Li agents what he's doing, that the Avatar is here, which really strange because she was being tortured just a couple of minutes ago, but I guess the torturement got to them and they just still squealed on the Avatar. We eventually see Zuko get confronted by Azula. They fight, and eventually when Azula wants to defeat Zuko, they remember what the mother, what Zuko's mother said right before she was taken away. Again, this is something that didn't happen in the original. That Azula has somehow some connection to Zuko's mother now, which she didn't in the original. I just think it kind of really, again, it really does hurt Azula's character in this because, that was really her motivation, and now her motivation is, oh, we need to get everybody together here, now because that's what our mother said before she was taken away. It really doesn't make sense. But that's how they decided to handle this. Because again, she already conquered Ba Sing Se before this final battle happened. In the original, she still hadn't captured it yet. She was on the verge of doing it, but she hadn't captured it yet. So then the fight breaks out. Aang and Katara are fighting in the next scene. Katara and Aang are confronted by Azula. And they're fighting. It looks like they're doing good against Azula. But then Zuko decides to come in. And we see what he does. It was perfectly handled well where he then double crosses Katara. And, she's like, I thought you'd changed. And he's like, I had changed. So there were a lot of good canonized lines they kept in this episode They did a couple things with the cuts of the five Zuko cutting the line of the water thing that Katara was doing. Azula being picked up by the water from her leg and an arm. That was something pretty accurate to the original. But then we see Aang decide to go in the Avatar state. And when he goes into the Avatar state, he's, starting to, really take it to Azula. Doing all the stuff he can. But then, they show some highlights. And again, they got rid of the guru. In this, the chakra natures and stuff like that, which is mentioned in the original. That's all gone. They don't mention that. They skip that. And they just basically say, if the Avatar dies in the Avatar states, it ends the cycle. Right? That's really all they mention. And the whole premise is, well, he's weak. Long Feng said that before the battle, is that you can't beat her because you're weak. And basically here, Azula does, shoot him once he basically starts to go soft and, lower his guard. And she shoots her. The weird thing about it is she shoots him frontward, which is really weird, because it's in the back. So that's something they don't get wrong, and that's something we're gonna point out later on because there's something else that's weird about that whole thing. But basically, then Katara, is all, distraught, and she basically goes to get Aang. And then we see Uncle Iroh just step in, and you got to get out of here. And so she gets out, she leaves. Toph had come back to get Sokka and everyone else. When she punched the door or kicked the door down, that was metal. She got Appa, and they basically then got Katara, and they went away. Then there was this, and I also should mention, since I did forget, that also before the battle, Katara did have some type of moment with Aang, where Aang kind of wanted to tell Katara how he feels about her, but they said we would be always friends. So there was that too. Once again, they're kind of building up to that whole ship in this season. But anyways, so Uncle Iroh is captured after they leave. Again, a lot of this felt very rushed. It wasn't very slow paced. They were really trying to get to the end. Not really a big fan of that. And it really felt like that the whole season. I don't know why they felt to not really let it flow. It just felt like a lot of the fight scenes were really rushed. And yeah, it just not something. I felt like there was more that could have been done for this season that, could have kind of rectified that. So when they're on Appa, Katara uses her healing stuff to heal Aang. The weird thing about this is because they changed how Azula shot Aang. She shoots him frontward. Okay, clearly see that. Shoots him right in the stomach. However, Katara still uses the water on the back part of Aang, which is the canon way that Aang got shot. But that's what they do here. But even though he was shot in the stomach. They still do the canon way of how they did it in the original, where she heals him up by, using the water on the back. Again, this doesn't make sense because, again, in this series, he was shot frontward. So why didn't she use the water privilege frontward? Not backward like it is in the original. If this was the cartoon anime, then yeah, that made sense. But here it doesn't make sense because, that's not how he was shot. Everybody was there. We see, while Appa is flying, we do see the king, which is kind of weird because they didn't try to get the king, right? They didn't try to save the king, who's not really doing anything. And then we just see the Fire Nation soldiers, coming into Ba Sing Se after that. Katara is trying to talk to Aang and hoping that he wakes up now. But they surprisingly don't show Aang actually opening his eyes in this, which is weird because they do that at the end of the original, at the end of the season 2 finale in the original. So I don't know why they don't do it here. Because, we all know what happens. If you've watched the original Avatar, you know that, he does survive this. But in the live action series, they want you to think that he might be dead still. I mean, that's what the implication is from the way the episode ended. I don't know why they did that. They don't really they don't really show Zuko sulking about Uncle Iroh. And it's also going to be the end of Uncle Iroh's tea shop, at least for the time being, because they did show that early on in the episode as well. But yeah, I mean, they changed a lot in this one, and again, no chakra networks. They don't even give the indication that, oh, yes, it's because of the chakra network. No, it's because Aang is just weak. That's why he failed. That's why he failed to defeat Azula. It's because he was weak, not because he's not having the right chakras being unblocked, right? Katara and stuff like that, because, love has to be blocked with the chakras. And that was the dilemma in the original, is he had to let go for him to complete the full chakras. That's the reason. But here, they're just like, nah. So Spirit Oasis saves Aang, but we are left to believe that he wasn't in this, even though we already know what happens. We see the king. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The king is just watching Appa fly away. So the king's just going to be like, yeah, whatever. The king's going to be just like, whatever. There's nothing I can do. And that's how they conquer Ba Sing Se. Dai Li agents helping. Anyways, that was the episode. That is the season finale. We have to wait until season 3. Overall thoughts of the season, very disappointing, if I'm being brutally honest. Way too much rushing going on. It just really felt like that so many of the key battle scenes and so many of the things that should have happened in in this season were just kind of rushed, and they didn't feel like they should have been as long as they were. You know, they weren't as long as they were. The whole season essentially being focused on Ba Sing Se, probably for budgeting reasons, I thought was a mistake. You know, there was one episode that wasn't Ba Sing Se, and that was the first episode. And then after that, once they got the Ba Sing Se in episode 2, they were there for the remainder of the season. Just so many things, and you know, the origins, the way they conquered the city compared to how, you know, they did in the original, I didn't think was the right approach. Yeah, but that's it. Hopefully they do better in the final season. But again, you know, adding plot points that should have been in season 3 will concern me, because obviously the Painted Lady was done. I mean, that doesn't mean they can't still use the Painted Lady in season 3, I guess, because it will take place in the Fire Nation. And maybe they don't know who the Painted Lady is. But it's still just like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? You know? You know? Anyways, I will say I hope they do the prison episode in season 3. I will say that if they skip the prison episode, I'm not gonna be happy about that, because that was well done, and that definitely deserves to be in season 3. But yeah, that's the episode. I hope they do better for next season, because obviously they're filming right now as we speak for season 3. So we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate. If you like this video or my videos, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell for this content. Thank you. And that's about it, guys. I am the Ultimate Goku, and I'm out of here. Peace. Also, make sure, besides my YouTube channel, to follow me on the Twitch, the Instagram. I do have a Discord link in the description where I discuss various topics, including this one here. Also, make sure to follow me, or not follow, the YouTube community posts that I talk about other topics, if you don't join the Discord, that I just do on my YouTube posts in case I don't make a video about it. So make sure to check out for that. And now I'm out. Peace.